What is acting white?
I really don't know. I would say that it's just how people act. Like, I don't think there's like a specific way that.
Okay. Do you think that acting white would be considered good, bad, or neither? And why?
Neither, because I think like anyone could act white. I guess like the stereotype of like white people. I guess anybody could act that way. However, just like their personality is.
Non-white people tend to act white more when they're around white people.
I would say so. I think that like people like act differently based on like who they're around, like just so that they fit in. And like I think white people sometimes will then like act like non-white people, like just based off like the culture that they're like in at the moment.
Okay, right. Why would people act white?
Maybe they think that it's cool, or maybe they, I don't know, maybe just they want to like fit in with white people.
Okay. Where and when do students of color act white?
I guess when they are a minority in a situation, or maybe if they like grew up in more of a like stereotypically like white area, like if you're from like a richer area of town.
What is acting white?
Probably like acting country-ish.
Country-ish? Okay.
More southern than anything.
Right. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Oh, you can go ahead.
You guys are generous, but you guys, I don't know, aren't eager to talk to other ethnicities unless they're like maybe black.
Okay. Non-white people tend to act white more when they're around white people.
Yeah.
Why do you think so?
Just because you feel more comfortable to do so, as opposed to doing it with other people.
Right. Would people act white?
Fit in.
For them?
Fit in.
Fit in.
Just
Gotcha.
like,
Acceptance.
Like why you act any other kind of, I guess, ethnicity.
Okay. Where and when do students of color act white?
Probably when they're talking to people, I guess, who are like of, I guess, their own ethnicity.
Okay. This is the last one. Do teachers have different expectations for students who act white?
In my experience, no.
In your experience, no?
Like all the teachers I've ever met are kind of nice, and they push everybody.
Okay.
Like if they see someone who's not white who does really well, hey, they'll motivate them.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Tim.
No
You
problem.
have a good day. What is acting white?
Being like privileged, sort of. I guess. Yeah, that's
Acting privileged?
I guess. So, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Is acting white good, bad, or neither, and why?
I mean, I would say neither. I mean, it's kind of like a made-up term.
Do non-white people tend to act white more when they're around white people?
I mean, some people, I would say so, I guess. Like, depending on how you take the term. I mean, like, I know even myself, I'd probably act differently depending on who I'm with. I think it's more so given the way that people themselves act.
Right. Where and when do students of color act white?
Let me see. Again, going off, I guess, like how I was interpreting it before. I guess in more professional settings, people kind of tend to change their appearance and their behavior to act white.
So
Right.
the first question is, what is acting white?
I guess it's just like it describes like the way you dress and like the way you talk, and it's just like how people perceive you. And I'm not. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, The second question, what are different ways that people act white?
I guess people could view. Once again, I guess it's like I've heard like people say like you act white because of like the way you talk, and I guess like if you talk like if you're like talk more proper or like something like that, like in relation to like the people around you, I guess they could say like you act or like yeah you act white.
Okay.
That's a way.
Yeah. The last question, do teachers have different expectations for students who act white?
It truly depends on the teacher, but I don't think they should have expectations. Since like in today's world, like everything's like more like mixed together, and there shouldn't be like a separation between like blacks or white or a different cultures. So I don't think they should have like a different expectation.
Okay. What is acting white?
Acting like yourself.
Acting like yourself?
Say.
Okay. What are different ways that people would act white?
I don't really know any ways, because I mean, there's not really a difference between acting white and acting black. So.
Okay, cool. Do people who act more white get treated differently than people who don't act white?
I don't think it's. I think if you uphold yourself very well, then you'll get treated very well.
Okay, cool. Where and when would a student of color act more white?
If you're referring to like how you uphold yourself, it'd be whenever you're, say, like going for an interview or going out to a business meeting or something.
Okay.
You'd uphold yourself a lot better than you would around your friends.
Right. Okay. And last question. Do teachers have different expectations for students who act white?
No. I think they have the same expectations for everyone. It just, your behavior shows everything. So.
All right.
Thank
Cool.
you.
All right.
Thank you so
What
much.
is acting white?
I don't know. I guess just like speaking properly, dressing a certain way. I guess just having like a more, I guess, professional air.
Is acting white good, bad, or neither, and why?
I think it has a bad kind of connotation to it because it kind of it I don't know how to explain it.
Like when someone says you're acting white, you think that's like not meant to be a nice thing.
No, yeah.
Okay. Do non-white people tend to act white more when they're around white people?
I would say yeah.
Yeah? Why do you think that?
I guess maybe sometimes like human nature, just like in general, like they mimic people around them.
Okay.
So it's just like I guess like a
Subconscious.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. Do people who act white get treated differently than people who don't act white?
I would say that.
Yeah? Why?
Maybe by like the older generation, just kind of see it as like the better way, the more professional way. I don't know. Worse, I guess wouldn't give them as much respect as somebody who would
Okay.
act white.
I gotcha. Where and when do students of color act white?
I would say where probably like in like a school environment, like in the classroom, or maybe speaking to somebody like of an older generation, I would say.
Okay.
What is acting white?
Just having, I don't know, I'm white, so just having my personality, I guess, just acting any way that I act. I mean, there's no strict definition for it.
Okay. What are different ways that people act white?
I mean, probably the stereotype is just kind of like acting nerdy, weird, I don't know.
Okay.
Kind of clumsy. clumsy and stuff like that. But
Okay.
I don't know if there's actually anything that's probably just a stereotype.
Okay.
Do teachers have different expectations for students who act white?
I think the perception is, yeah, I don't think they do.
Yeah. Okay. What is acting white?
To me, I don't know if there is a difference between acting a certain way, but we have these stereotypes, so we associate certain group with certain stereotype. So acting white, we have the stereotype white chick drunk or something, like white chick wasted.
Yeah.
So we have that stereotype associated with the white woman, and then we have associated with blonde.
What are ways that a person can act white?
I don't know. Acting white. Usually people associate this with black people, though. If you're well spoken, you're acting white. You're not acting your race, and that's the this culture of gang culture or whatever in small. Usually in the minorities within cities. What's it called? Something minorities in the city. I forget what they call them. Inner city minorities, that's what they call them. Because when I lived in Los Angeles, the Hispanic kids and black kids, they were having this, it's like, no, man, you're educated, you should, you're doing good in high school, you don't want to act like this, or you don't want to act like that. I think it's, I'm a badass because I act this way or that way. And when the minorities act good, the proper way, peer pressure will say, hey, yeah, you're not acting your race, and I don't think that you're acting your own race. It's more of you're acting good. You're pursuing a degree. You're not getting yourself into trouble.
Okay. Do people who act white get treated differently than people who don't act white?
Yes, as I mentioned, within the same community, even if you act non-white as a white person, you can get in problems with your parents. You speak our race. I heard this before. Speak our race.
Yeah.
Don't. She said, the little girl, she's like a teenager, like 19, 18 years old. She said, Dad, you're tripping. I said, don't speak to me like this.
Do teachers, this is the last one, do teachers have different expectations for students that act white? No.
I would like to think and believe that it's your output, your accomplishment, and not how you act.
The first question is, what is acting white?
I don't think there is such a thing as acting white, but there's people that try to act white in the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they behave around people, other than their culture. So let's say somebody is from culture A and he's at college, and where the culture is culture B, he tries to act like culture B rather than his actual culture.
Okay, the second question, what are different ways that people act white?
So people might consider acting white is the way they dress, the way they talk, other than the way they behave around their culture. So let's say I'm Egyptian, so let's say I am around a bunch of white people, I'm gonna talk the way they talk rather than the way I talk around my Egyptian culture.
Okay, and do teachers have different expectations for students who act white?
I don't think, in this day and age, I don't think the teachers do that. I think we have evolved as a society in terms of that.
We did our project on what is acting white, and so as we discussed in class, we perceive like the culture differences of acting white and identify their maintenance and not so much of the barriers that we overcome. In schools today, they are learning that equated with learning a white culture frame and a reference and the rules and the norms as acting white. So we interviewed a couple of students on Clemson's campus, and we asked them the question, what is acting white? And a lot of them didn't like the question. They said it was very broad and not so much specific, and so most of the answers were just how they act and the way they dress and the way they talk and who they hang out with the most on campus, and so I think that most of their answers, if I were interviewed and asked that question, I would probably say the same thing, but I ultimately also think that it shouldn't be like a way of, I don't know, it shouldn't, like, white people should be perceived as acting white. I think it's just who they are and not so much of how they act or how they talk or dress.
Like, that a lot of people thought that it was just kind of a silly stereotype and that acting white shouldn't be a thing if it is to some people, but that overall it shouldn't even be considered anything. And it also seemed like the people that we interviewed at least, had some good experiences with teachers, because nobody said that the teachers would treat someone differently based on whether they act white or not, which was pretty cool because teachers aren't supposed to treat people differently based on that. And they're supposed to, try to help people who may be struggling in their class, even if they, are struggling in their class. It also seemed like our generation is changing the way that we look at these types of stereotypes, and a lot of people said that maybe back in a few years ago, or maybe with people of an older generation, they would treat people differently based on whether they act white or not. But it seems like most of the people that we talked to didn't feel like they would, or that they should be treated differently, or some of them didn't even think that acting white was a thing at all. They just refused to acknowledge it, which I thought was pretty cool. I think her name was Jada, and every time we asked her a question, she was just like, well, it's acting like who you are, like acting white, if that, that's just the way you act. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it seems like people are kind of changing the way we see these stereotypes in society.
For watching. We really enjoyed this project just because we got the opportunity to interview students on campus and just get their point of view about what is acting white, and I thought me and Megan were very interested in it, and we liked everybody's answers, so thank you. Bye!